Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm Todd Nesloney, your host. I'm an elementary principal in Texas and author of the book Stories from Web, which this whole series is based after. Every week, I try to bring you a different guest that has inspired, encouraged, or challenged me in some kind of way and allow them to tell some of their story with you. I am so thrilled this week to have my guest, Laymon Hicks, on. Laymon, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are?
Well, first, thank you, Todd, so much for having me. I'm excited to be on this call with you. My name is Dr. Laymon Hicks. I am a motivational speaker and author for young people. I travel all across the nation speaking to our students, empowering them to overcome their obstacles and get back up. I've been doing this for the last 10 years and in the process worked on getting a doctorate degree to, in a sense, transition and work with school leaders about how to build better cultures as well as build better relationships with their staff members. And I'm excited. I'm just truly thrilled to be here. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course. So I want to start by talking about your doctorate. So, I went to school and got my degree, and then I went and got my master's only because, I wasn't looking to be a principal at the time. I just wanted to be the first person in my family with a master's. And so I achieved that. So I was like, done. And then all these people that I admire and respect go back and get this doctorate, which I know is a lot of work. What drew you to wanting to have a doctorate?
Well, it's always been a goal. In 2009, my great grandmother passed away, and it caused me to reflect on my life. And so I created this list of goals, about 75 goals that I wanted to accomplish within my lifetime. And one of those goals was that I wanted to have a PhD, a doctorate degree in educational administration. At the time, I didn't know, I had this goal that I wanted to be a principal. So while my doctorate is an EDD, it's in organizational leadership, which every organization has leaders. Mm-hmm. And so my focus really stemmed on, as a speaker, I walk into schools every month. And I walk into some schools and I'm like, well, how did the principal become the principal at this school? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, I got it. And then at some schools I walk into and I'm like, why is the principal at this school? Yep. And so, it really was birthed from, I was brought in on the third day of school at a high school in Colorado. I know, because I've been in school all my life, that on the third day of school, you're doing nothing but procedures. There's no learning going on. It's just really getting to know each other. And so they bring me in, fly me all the way from Florida to talk to their student body. Students are coming up to me, telling me about their goals and dreams, coming down and take pictures. And I hear this booming voice that says, there's no more next. It's like, okay, kids, we'll go back to class. I don't want you to get in trouble. And so as the AP's walking me to my car, he says, that was our principal. And I was like, well, I've been on your campus for 4 hours, and he never introduced himself to me. Mm-hmm. And so he was like, well, would you mind sharing this with our superintendent? None of our staff members really connect with him. He's been here for 3 years, and he just doesn't understand the relationship aspect. And so that got me thinking, how do leaders who are new to a school build relationships with their staff? And then how do those leaders, how is their leadership influenced by the followers of that school? And so my dissertation is called Leading in Unfamiliar Territory. And because you don't know anyone, you're new to this school, no one really knows you, but what are you going to do to reach out, extend an olive branch, to build relationships with your staff in order to get them to move their school forward? Todd, as a principal, that in order to move any school forward, the number one thing is relationships.
Right.
You don't have those, everything else doesn't matter. We don't care about test scores. We don't care about, what students are doing on their exams. If you have no relationships with the people in your building, no one's going to do anything for you. And so it was a very interesting study. I enjoyed it, but so that's where that came from.
Awesome. Well, okay, so you do a lot of motivational speaking. Yeah. And I know for a lot of people, especially, I mentioned to you earlier that a lot of the viewers or listeners that I have for this podcast or our video series is educators. Yeah. And a lot of educators, even though they stand in front of kids every day, when it comes to public speaking, it's a terrifying thought to them of speaking in front of their peers. Yeah. When you were growing up and before deciding to do this kind of career path, did you ever picture yourself as a speaker?
Well, I don't know if I ever picture myself as a speaker, I would say that I've always had the gift of, talking. My very first speech came as a fourth grade student. I competed in an oratorical contest. Here we call it the Tropicana Speech Contest. And my first speech was on Dr. Martin Luther King. And so I won my class and, had the opportunity to present in front of the school and then within the county. So that was at fourth grade. And so I've always had just this knack for wanting to be in front of people and speaking. At the time, I didn't know you get paid to do this type of stuff. And while certainly that is a benefit of it, the greatest reward is being able to stand in front of an audience where no one knows me and walk off the stage and have a line of students who just want to come down and shake your hand, who want to come down and give you a hug, who want to come down and share their story with you. And to me, I would do that every day. And I tell people all the time, because public speaking is the number one feared thing in America. No one knows if you mess up unless you tell them that you messed up, right? And so a lot of times people are more nervous for you being up there than they are themselves. And so just get up there, be authentically you, tell your story, which is befitting that we have, this is what we're talking about today, but tell your story, be honest, be true. And people connect with that. When you get up there and you are authentic, people will connect with it, even in the classroom. I think it's important that teachers really get students to understand, I have been where you are. Students need to know that it's okay to fail. They need to know that it's okay to make mistakes. They need to know that you made mistakes and you overcame them, right. that you're currently still dealing with challenges. And that is okay. But I come to work every day because I have a passion and I want to help you. And so, it's important that you just tell your story and be authentically you.
So do you ever find yourself getting nervous before any of your presentations or any particular crowds or anything?
It's very rare. I spoke at Columbine High School this past year in February, and prior to speaking there, I talked with the principal, and he had mentioned to me, I didn't even know this at the time, but he had mentioned to me that this was the 20th year of the 20th anniversary, and it kind of put a little butterflies because I was like, I really want to make an impact on these students. I know that they may be dealing with their own challenges, but a lot of times once I get up on stage, I'm in my zone, and so that nervousness goes away because I realize that at the end of the day, this is what I've been called to do. And so because I've been called to this, like, there's no need to be nervous. That, when I first started out speaking, Todd, I wanted to change the entire audience. If there's 2,000 students in the audience, I wanted everybody to walk away inspired. But I realized that was huge. That is a huge task. And so now my prayer before I get up on stage is that, use me in a way that I'm able to touch one. And if I'm able to touch one, then my job here is complete. If I touch 2, 3, or 4 or more, then kudos to me. But yeah, so the nerves rarely happen anymore. But they'll come back from time to time.
Well, I love what you just shared there, though, about, and I can so connect with that because, I do a lot of public speaking and different things like that too. And I travel to all different kinds of schools. And just like you just said, I used to be of the mindset of, okay, I've got to make sure everybody likes it. I've got to make sure that I reach everyone. And then now that's not so much my goal. I want to share ideas and hopes that everybody can take away something. Right. But just like you, that when I speak and share, because when I do it, I share practical things for educators, but also a lot of my personal story and life. And just having that 1 or 2 people maybe that come up at the end that just give you a hug and say, thank you for saying this thing. Right. It made me remember this, because I told the story of my mom, my grandma, and just when they come up and say that, I'm like, okay, it was worth it for that connection with that one person. And I love the work that you do, because mine is primarily with adults, but yours is with youth. Right. And so a lot of the times they can be a much harder audience.
They are.
Adults can be.
They are.
So how do you connect with a crowd of kids that you've never met before, where you tear down some of those walls where they feel comfortable in allowing you to see some of them?
Well, I think the first thing for me specifically is eliminating the mindset within myself that I have to connect with everyone. I already know that that's not going to happen.
Right.
And so if I hop up on that stage with the mindset that I have to connect with every single student, I've already put myself at a disadvantage because I know that that is not going to take place. I've had people in my audience who will literally bring Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer books and sit there and read the entire time during the presentation. I've had people who will talk the entire time during the presentation. I've had people who sleep the entire time during the presentation. I already realized that my message is not for everyone. Some people just are not in the mindset ready to receive that message. They may be there present, but they've already put up this wall. Oh, we got a speaker today. I don't want to be here. And they're literally the one that the message is for. And so until they are willing to let that wall down, there's really nothing that I can do but just continue to give my message and hope that they will, something that I say will motivate or inspire them. I always tell people, especially those who reach out to me and say, hey, I want to get into speaking. I try to tell them that I try to take my audience on a journey, like a roller coaster ride. And so I start out really high. I get everybody up, I get them dancing, because I want you to realize this is not the normal speaker that you're used to. And what I have found is that you will hear students come up and say, oh, you were so different than the other speaker. And that's because they're used to just sitting there listening, not being able to have a good time. And so I want my students to have a good time. I give them the fun. I take them on a low. I get them back on a fun. I take them back on a low. I kind of steady that road out, and then I take them low and I bring them back home very high. And so it's like a roller coaster. And again, realizing that, there are people who will tune out. That's fine.
Yeah.
If you get one nugget, good. I used to tell people, and I kind of tell people now, I don't want to be known as the motivational speaker. I want it for young people. I want to be known as someone who changed your perspective. A perspective changer. Because if I can change your perspective about who you are, what you can accomplish, and how you can tackle the world, then to me, I've done every single thing. I have a 2-year-old, and right before she turned 2, we started practicing this mantra that I have her say every night that says, I'm powerful, I'm strong, I can be anything that I want to be. When I believe in me, hard work will always win in the end. I'm beautiful, I'm smart, I'm kind, I'm Carson Lee Hicks. And I realized if I can get her to start believing that for herself, that when the world tries to tell her that she's not good enough, that it's not possible for her, that she can't be anything. Oh, you're a young brown girl. You got a little attitude to you. You'll never be who you want to be. She'll go back to that and say, you know what? I know who I am, and won't listen to what the world says. And so I just want to shift people's perspective about who they are. And you'll receive it if you want to. I mean, it's just like, you were a teacher. There are some students who don't care to be in school. And you can't motivate the child that doesn't want to be motivated. You can give every single thing that you want. You will wipe yourself out trying to give everything. But until that person is ready to come around, there's not much that you can do. You can keep knocking at it. You can keep trying to tear that wall down. But until they are really ready to receive all that you have to give, there's not much. And so
I love, though, that you have your daughter repeat that every night.
Oh, yeah.
We do a little mantra at our school every day that we have on the announcements that we have the kids repeat about being worthy, being enough, knowing that they matter. Because, there is so much research that says that inside voice that you repeat to yourself every day, whether it is true or not, your brain begins to believe it. And I love that you are already setting her up at 2 years old to have that built into her psyche, so that, like you said, when those moments come, when somebody tells her you are not good enough, you don't fit here, you are too different, that she has something to fall back on, even when you may not be there to catch her. Why was that so important for you to have as a part? Like, when did you decide this is something I'm going to want to introduce to her?
Yeah. So, I tell the story that my dad has 10 kids. And Papa was a Rolling Stone. But growing up, I really wish that I had that from him. And so, I didn't have that positive male role model that I felt like I needed at the time. My grandfather and my grandmother got a divorce after 25 years of marriage. I lived with them at the time. My mom got a divorce. One of my aunts got a divorce. And so there was just a lot happening around me at a very young age. And the male role models that I wanted and I needed and I wanted to hear from, good job, you can. I didn't have that. And so I just made a commitment as a kid that if I ever had children, that I would not want them to feel like I felt. And so, I just want to be my daughter's biggest cheerleader. Yeah. And in fact, I want to be all kids' biggest cheerleader. I never want to come in contact with anyone without them walking away from a conversation with me, without them feeling like, you know what, I am good enough. And that's my biggest thing, is that I just want people to know, you know what, if you're willing to put your mind to it, if you're willing to do it, you can be someone. And the world's going to tell you that you're not good enough at times. And it's going to happen. You're going to feel like I'm not good enough at times. I felt that way. You felt that way. But you know what? Get back up. Because there's someone out there in the world who needs you. Right. And because of that, you got to keep on moving. And so, that commitment was very early on. It's funny because last Thursday I spoke at an event here in my county where the school district rewarded some of the top achieving African-American students. My daughter was in the audience, and I had the opportunity to bring her up on stage and recite that in front of 2,000 people. So that was really, really cool. But again, it's just, if we taught our young people at that age, at the age of 2, to start speaking positively to themselves, when they get to middle school and social media attacks them, where will we be? I mean,
That's huge. Since you do so much speaking around with youth, you probably have a lot of connections and hear a lot of stories. Yeah. Are you seeing any kind of consistent thing that kids across the country are telling you?
Yeah, I mean, I did not realize how prevalent and big just harming yourself, self-harm was. There's just so many students who something happens that they don't agree with. I don't know where it happened, because I know when I was growing up, I mean, I'm only 32, but when I was growing up, you pick on people. Tomorrow you were friends again. It was just the nature of the game. But then I guess with social media now, everything is just blown up. And so now the first time someone feels any pain or feel like they've been called out, been called the name, the first resort is that they're harming themselves. And, I just see that so much. And so to me, it's why it's so important for parents, for mentors, for adults, teachers, whomever, to just continue to build. There are people who will be, they're not necessarily listening to every single word, but something that you may say may catch fire with them. But the self-harm, I had a kid one time, Todd, who literally cut herself, and I was at her school and I told her, she showed me the scars. I was like, yo, you are better than that. Like, what are you doing? And so she Instagrammed me, sent me a private message with a picture of her bleeding on her arm. And I'm like, what are you doing? I thought we talked about this. And her response to me was, I just like it. I like the feeling. And so we have just dumbed down, in a sense, what it means to try to take your life. Like, some people are just so they gravitate towards that because of the feeling. Oh, I like this feeling. And it makes me look cool because we sensationalize this. In reality, that's not who you are. And I've realized that there are a lot of young people who are just calling out for attention, and they think that that's the way to get that attention, but it's not. And I try to tell people, if no one knows you are hurting, how can anyone help you fix that problem? And so we have to get to a place where we encourage our young people to open their mouth. A closed mouth doesn't get fed. So open your mouth, talk to people, let people know that you are hurting inside, and don't be afraid that someone is going to judge you. Right. Because if you want help, then you have to ask for help.
So if there are adults in these kids' lives who are looking to kind of be a help, have you, in talking to all these kids, seen certain things that they really want the adults to do to notice them or to step in?
Yeah, the huge thing is listening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you look at the word listen, Listen, those 6 letters make up another word, silent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to be silent. You know, I appeared a long time ago in 2011. I appeared on the Maury Povich show. I'm not the baby daddy, okay? So, but I was on that show working with 4 outrageous teenage moms. And I remember leaving that show, having worked with those young women, and then maybe 2 or 3 months later, I received this email from a mom who said, you know, that they found the suicide note at her daughter's school in her locker, and she's so thankful that they found it because where would her daughter be today? And in the email, she proceeds to tell me, you know, my daughter would come home and tell me all this stuff, and I would tell her it's not that big of a deal, don't worry about it, all this other stuff. She was like, you know, now my daughter doesn't talk to me, I don't know what to do, can you help me? And my response to her was, you did it wrong. You did it wrong. She was coming to you, she was telling you what was a big deal to her. It's not a big deal to you, but it is to her. And because it is a big deal to her, all you need to do is listen. Be silent. And so just listen to your kids, have those conversations with them. A lot of times they're not looking for the advice. They just want to be heard.
Right.
And if you can provide that listening ear, you've put yourself in a better position to then provide that advice. But if all you do is, it's not that big of a deal, stop worrying about it. Okay. It's you know, you've shut them out. And so now you have to rebuild for her. She has to rebuild that relationship with someone who she's told, you know, get over it. Well, it's not that easy to some of these young people to just get over it. It may have been for you and I, but it's not for them. And it's important that we just sit down and just listen, be present. You know, we sit in our classrooms. You go to a leader, and the first thing they do is they shut you down. You don't feel heard. And what do? You shut down. Yep. So do the exact same thing that you want done for you to them.
That's perfect. Well, you know, Laymon, we talked about a bunch of different things today, but one thing that I love to always end the show on is if there was one thing that you wish more people knew or understood, what would that one thing be for you?
That you matter. Yeah, I wish more people just understood that you're going to have challenges. You're going to have setbacks. You're going to make mistakes. There will be times where you feel like you are not good enough, but you do matter. Mm-hmm. There's someone out there in the world who needs you, your story, your impact, your motivation, your empowerment, your uplifting. There's someone out there who will benefit from you. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I sent you that shirt. It's why I have it on here. Mm-hmm. But who did you make smile? You know, every single day you have the opportunity to make someone else's lives better, someone else's life better by just simply smiling at them. I was in Alabama, Todd, and I was in Chick-fil-A, and there was an older gentleman standing at the register, and I had this shirt on, had just finished speaking at a high school, and I could tell he was trying to read it, and he's looking, and so, again, the shirt says, who did you make smile? So he walks away, he's about to exit, and he turns around to me, and he says, a smile doesn't cost anything. And I was like, you're right. It doesn't cost anything. If we were to smile more, if we were just to be more nice, if we were to be more kind to each other, where would this world be? You know, people just now, they hide behind social media and they hide behind these screens and phones, and they're just vicious and mean to each other. And then that carries over into our workplaces, into our schools. And there are a lot of young people who feel like, you know what, I don't matter. So I'm going to take it two-pronged. One, yes, realize you do matter. The other thing, realize that you have the power to brighten someone's day by simply smiling and telling them, you know what, you got this.
Man, that's a mic drop ending. Well, Laymon, I love so much the work that you're doing. I think that you're such a naturally gifted but totally honest speaker. I mean, I feel like what you put out there is who you really are. Yeah. And I appreciate you and the work that you're doing with our youth and with so many others. And so thank you so much for agreeing to come on and be my guest this week.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you for having me.
And thank you all the listeners or viewers again for watching another episode. I hope this episode encouraged or inspired you to get out there and tell your story, because like I tell you every week, every story matters. Have a good night, everyone.